Okay, I think I am now live. I'm trying to make sure that I am. If I could also get a heads up about this, please, that would be really nice. Okay, yeah, I just got away from path. Okay. Just start in a bit, I believe. All right, so I think I should begin at 7 o'clock. So I just want to talk about who I am first. I'm Sanya, and I want to thank Priya, Amit, and the entire team at Desi Kanun for allowing me today to speak about sexual harassment at workplace laws. So I am currently working as a POSH consultant with an organization, with a firm, which is a boutique firm which deals specifically in sexual harassment at workplace laws. Now this firm is called POSH at Work, and what we do is we assist other organizations to comply with the POSH laws. So as you might be aware, there is a particular law in place which is specific to the workplace laws and for sexual harassment, and it is supposed to be applied across India uniformly. Now when we talk about sexual harassment laws and we talk about being POSH consultants or being POSH experts, so POSH is outrightly stands for Prevention of Sexual Harassment, POSH, experts, consultants. So that these days that is what people who are working in this sector are called. So when you want to become a POSH consultant or you want to work in this sector, there are certain aspects to it which are required to be followed, and I think it is very important also to make sure that you are looking into it not only from the perspective of the legal angle of it, but also other nuances to it. Now what I mean by nuances is that because this particular act is it's a very thin act, by the way. It's just about a few pages, and when you look at it, you'll feel like, oh my god, it's just so simple. It's just read it and we'll be done with it. But actually, the law might seem very simple to read, but when you actually start practicing it and you start applying it for organizations or for individuals or for those entities that require this compliance, it becomes more and more, so as to speak, complicated, but it gets easier with time, I believe. So anyway, so going back, so when you want to become a POSH consultant, I think that is something that I should talk about. You have to be trained firstly in the POSH laws, in the sexual harassment at workplace laws, and apart from that, you have to be trained to conduct inquiries. Now I'll come to what these inquiries are and what I mean by inquiries. So all of that has to be put in place. Our organization, the organization that I'm working for, is also offers trainings and everything. But today I'm talking in my personal capacity. So coming back to what really is sexual harassment at workplace. To understand that, I think very important first to focus on. Please tilt the phone. Sorry. Okay, I can try that. All right, so the first very important thing to understand sexual harassment workplace laws is this, that what really constitutes sexual harassment. When I'm typically talking about sexual harassment, firstly, without the law angle of it, the first thing that I always prefer to talk about is what really constitutes it. Now the law does give certain types of sexual harassment, types like physical advances, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography. All of these things are laid down in the law. but there is no exhaustive list per se of what will constitute sexual harassment under these particular heads and what will not. And I think that is also very dangerous to do, and none of the laws particularly lay that out, that this particular act done this way only will constitute this crime, or this particular act. So that is not laid down in the law, and so therefore it becomes very important to get into the intricacy of what should and what shouldn't. The rider is to understand that this particular law is very subjective in nature. Okay, it is very subjective. There is no black and white to this particular law, and that is why there are lots of gray areas. People also often have a lot of questions about whether this will constitute or this will not, and that is why you need people to train organizations and to train people to make them understand what really constitutes and what really doesn't. So going back, what really constitutes sexual harassment? For me, when I'm trying to explain sexual harassment generally, or when I'm conducting awareness sessions for organizations, for entities, I focus on the aspect of boundaries first. Okay, now boundaries in terms of sexual harassment is extremely important. Why? Because boundaries are different for different people. Now you might have a different perception of something in life, generally speaking, and another person might have a different perception of the same thing in life. This does not mean that you are right or another is wrong. This simply means that everybody has different boundaries in terms of physical boundaries, mental boundaries. You tend to have visual boundaries also. I'll give you an example. When you're watching, say, the TV and a very violent scene comes up, so suddenly, our eyes close. A lot of people do that. They don't like to see very gory scenes or very scary scenes. But other people are more accustomed to it. So boundaries can be a lot of boundaries. It can be a boundary of the eyes, physical boundaries. Some people are very comfortable to be, to hug and to shake hands and talk. Some people are just not. They don't like to do it. At the same time, there are boundaries for the ears, right? So everything, all aspects of your life have boundaries. I'll give you very, very, interesting examples so far as the ear boundaries are concerned. I remember that I went for a movie back in time with my mother. It's called Gangs of Wasiyapur, and that movie is full of abusive language and everything, right? So I went for it to watch with her in the movie hall. Good old days when the cinema halls will open again anyway. So I went with her, and she was absolutely disgusted with the movie, right? Not that I really enjoyed watching the abusive scenes, but for me it was a movie, and it was just a movie, and it was going to end. But the entire movie for her was quite disastrous thing. She was again and again telling me, oh my god, where have you got me, where have you got me? So this kind of boundary it was different for her in terms of years, in terms of what she could hear again and again. For me, it was different. So everybody has very different boundaries, and to say that, oh, you're so sensitive, oh, you're getting offended so quickly, oh, why don't you get more pally with people, oh, why don't you get touchy with people, things like that. So those things are very common, and when we're talking about them, even with friends or with people around us, those things tend to come up. And to understand what sexual harassment is, this is extremely important. I'll tell you why. Like I said, perceptions, boundaries different for different people. Okay, I'm so sorry, I'll have to take a minute. I think the video needs to be horizontal. Okay, I'll tilt it, okay. Okay, sorry, I'm so sorry about this. I hope this is better. Right, so going back to what boundaries really are. Can you define boundaries? The question is that, right? Can you really define them? Well, they can be defined from person to person only. That's my understanding of it. And they are absolutely hugely different. So when you're in a room of, say, when you're in a family, or when you're in a room of, say, 10 people, all of them will have different kinds of understandings of what their boundaries are. So the idea is, when you're understanding sexual harassment, the nuance of it is this, that the boundaries will be different for different people, and when we dive into the law, that understanding and that perception, that sensitivity to this topic is very important. And that is why I always say that I almost start an awareness session by saying that you should always respect other people's boundaries. It's a cliche, and it's spoken of a lot, but I think that is the most important thing in today's times, in fact. All right, so what I'm going to do is now I want to take you through certain types of sexual harassment which are particularly laid down in the law. Now, these types are demand or request for sexual favors. So that's one of the most important, right? So asking someone out, perhaps at a workplace. Okay, now I'm going to be talking specifically about the workplace today. Okay, there is a law in place called the Sexual Harassment at Workplace for Women Act. It is a 2013 act, and this particular act it only subscribed to the workplaces. It does not go beyond that. Also, this law is a civil law. Okay, it is a civil legislation. It is civil social welfare legislation. This in no way means that there is no criminal angle to it. So there is a criminal law side by side which functions. It is the IPC, the 354B and all of those sections. They run simultaneously, and they run subsequently if at all a person wishes to go and file a complaint, also an FIR. So today what I do is I deal only in the civil side of it, right? So I only deal with the Sexual Harassment Workplace Act 2013 and not with the IPC aspect of it, not in the litigation of the criminal side of it. But we will discuss that, not at length, but we'll try to look at what is the difference, and if can both of these things run together. So going back. So the types of sexual harassment in the law, demand or request for sexual favors is one of the types of sexual harassment at workplace, and otherwise also. Now, to demand a favor, a sexual favor from any particular person, right? That could amount to sexual harassment at workplace. Now, this demand word is also a rider here, okay? Now, you don't know whether it is a demand or a request till you actually look at it from that perspective. The other type is physical contact or advances, right? Physical contact, advances, it is very straightforward, like, touching somebody when inappropriately when they are sitting at work, or sometimes people tend to get very close to you when you're sitting in the car, and you again and again brushing your shoulder with them. That kind of a physical advance that could fall under sexual harassment. Or straightforwardly say pinching somebody in an inappropriate place, that will fall under physical advances. The next type is showing pornography. Now, showing pornography is an outright form of sexual harassment at workplace. How do we talk about this in the workplace? Now, if you look at showing pornography or looking at pornography at a workplace also, the whole idea of it just sounds very alien, right? Because firstly, why would you do something like that at a workplace? However, if you look back, there was this incident back in time, in the parliament, where some parliamentarians were caught looking at these pornographic videos when the parliament was in session, and the reporters caught hold of this video. And I think the entire nation saw that video, and we were like flabbergasted with it, right? So for them, the parliament is their workplace, and they were looking at pornography in their workplace, and a lot of people who were in the parliament, they probably saw them or they didn't see them, but if they had seen them, it could have affected them, or it could have been unwelcome to them. So the idea is that definitely when we saw that news, we got very disgusted with it, and that is how I want to explain to you why showing pornography at a workplace could or could not fall under sexual harassment at workplace. And now another type is making sexually colored remarks. Now, colored is a word which would go on to mean, a double meaning kind of a sentence, a double meaning kind of a word which is spoken. So sometimes, people, those WhatsApp jokes that go around, that when you read them in the first go, they sound like they mean something else, but actually they mean something else when you read it the second time. A lot of people understand it in the first time also, but so yeah, those kind of jokes, that people make. I remember that we had a case once where this particular person used to sing a particular song when this lady used to enter the office, the pantry of the office. The song used to be Choli ke piche kya hai. This is what he used to sing when she used to enter the workspace. And when you hear it for the first time, the whole idea of hearing a song like that sounds a little bit funny to a lot of people. But when you actually reflect back and think what a person who is working in an office feels when somebody sings a song like that, which has a double meaning, again and again after they are entering that work zone. And so yeah, this case did come up in this particular organization, and an inquiry was conducted against this person. I'll get to how that was done and how we do it as posh consultants, as posh experts. So yeah, that is one type. Then moving on, so another type which the law says is other physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct. This is a type of sexual harassment which is specifically written in the law. Now, because the law is so wide, right? The law is so extremely wide, and it is, human beings are complex creatures, and you never know what could or what couldn't fall under sexual harassment. This particular type is that umbrella kind of type which the law specifically designates. So verbal kind of sexual harassment would probably mean saying something to someone out loud, or making jokes or calling them sexual names, or in a sexual way. Okay, so now that I've talked about the types of sexual harassment, I also want to say that sexual harassment per se means an unwelcome conduct. Okay, an unwelcome conduct for a person who is at the receiving end. Okay, a person who receives an unwelcome conduct and is not reciprocating to that conduct, is not saying that yes, I'm okay with this conduct, or does not appear to be okay with that conduct, and that particular conduct is of a sexual nature. So that is all that is required to understand. So unwelcome behavior, firstly. Secondly, non-reciprocation of that behavior. And thirdly, the fact that it has to be sexual in nature. The sexual overtone has to be there. Okay. And that is why it becomes very important to understand what is sexual harassment and what is not sexual harassment. Now, I often ask this question when I am taking a session, or when I'm taking a training session with organizations. The question that I ask is, do you think calling someone fat would fall under sexual harassment? Now, it would be really nice if you people could comment on that. What do you think? I think if we could make it more interactive. So you think calling someone fat, "Arey, ye to bahut moti hai, you're so fat," will that fall under sexual harassment or not? Just a general idea of it. Is anybody going to answer that? Okay. Okay, anyway, I'm moving on. So the whole idea is that no. So somebody said no. No, it would not, right? Why? The question is why? Why wouldn't it fall under sexual harassment? Because some person is saying yes, some person is saying it may. Okay, yes, okay, that's okay. So the answer to that is, when you're calling someone fat, does it have any sexual overtone to it? You're straightforwardly calling someone fat. You're commenting on their physical structure or their physical being. Yes, it is a kind of humiliation, you're right. It is a kind of bullying. It is a kind of name calling. Yeah, it will fall under, say, discrimination. It will fall under bullying. It will fall under other types of harassment. But it will not fall under sexual harassment. Now, let me add something to that. calling someone fat and saying that, oh my god, you're so fat, nobody will sleep with you. Will that fall under sexual harassment, you think? The question is, do you think saying that you are so fat, who will sleep with you, will that now fall under sexual harassment? Yes, somebody says yes. Why is that? Because there is that sexual angle there, there's a sexual overtone there. Yeah? Okay, so that is the main difference. I'm not saying that body shaming is right and that it will not fall under any laws or it will not fall under any kind of discriminatory practices at workplace, but it will not fall under this particular law. Similarly, calling out someone for their caste or for their religion and putting them down because of that, all of those things fall under the aspects of discrimination, or like some Devansh said, it is a kind of humiliation. It is not sexual harassment. So that is the main understanding of it. Okay. So there are other types also, which are quid pro quo and hostile work environment. Now, quid pro quo is a type of sexual harassment in which in Latin terms, it is a Latin term. It means this for that, which means that somebody would is having to make a request for a sexual favor or a demand for a sexual favor in return for something. So that is what quid pro quo means. Now, quid pro quo always happens between a senior, right, and a junior. So that hierarchy of the relationship has to be there in order to designate that type of sexual harassment as quid pro quo. Okay, it is one of the most serious kinds of sexual harassment at work, especially. Why is that? I think to understand why quid pro quo is, I will answer that question. Why how can sleep example? I can add to that later. I'm going to continue. Okay, so quid pro quo, why is it the most serious kind of sexual harassment? Coming back to that, it is one of the most serious types of sexual harassment because there is a certain understanding of senior and junior relationship here, and somebody who's in power, somebody who's at an elevated position is trying to abuse their power. So even in criminal law, right, suppose if a particular a police personnel indulges in, say, a sexual violence, or does acts out a rape, or does performs a rape on somebody, that will have more serious repercussions, more serious punishments, higher forms of punishment, higher forms of jail terms than somebody who's not in the police, in the police or at a position of power. So the idea is that if there is a position of power involved, then the repercussions of that particular act are always more serious, so as to speak. Okay. All right. Another type is hostile work environment. Hostile work environment is to make the environment of a workplace so difficult and so hostile. Like, when wars happen, the situation becomes a little hostile, becomes very hostile, and people are always stressed out. So hostile work environment under this particular law means that making a particular atmosphere for a person so intimidating, so hostile for them to carry out their practice of work or any kind of performance of duties, that they are they feel sexually harassed. And of course we have to go back to the idea that there has to be some element of sexual overtones involved here. Okay, moving on. I think when I'm talking about sexual harassment at workplace laws, or I'm conducting a session of awareness of sexual harassment workplace laws, the most important aspect of it I always focus on is intent versus impact. Okay. Now, if I was able to go through a PowerPoint presentation with you, it would have been much easier to understand what I'm trying to say. But remember these keywords: intent versus impact. For easier access to what I'm trying to say, I'm going to give like broad descriptions and guidelines. I'm going to pass them on to the team, and they can have a look at it and post it as well for you to like go over it again. So intent versus impact is something that I always focus on when I'm trying to make a person understand what really is sexual harassment, right? Now, when you're doing a criminal act, when a person is doing a criminal act, the intention is extremely important, right? But so you have to prove the intention of the person, whether there was a criminal intent to do it, all of those things. If you're studying law, or if you're doing you're studying IPC right now, if you're practicing law, you probably know that already. The intent, actus reus, is very important, and mens rea is very important, right? Both those things. But in this particular law, which is the civil law of sexual harassment at workplace, the impact of this particular act on the person who is at the receiving end is always more important than the intent. It will always always supersede the intent. Now, I'm not saying intent is not important. The intention to do an act or engage in a sexual harassment act is not important at all. Now, this intention becomes important only during the inquiry. Now, when a complaint comes up, right? When a complaint comes up in a workplace, this particular intention will be looked at in the inquiry. But to take in a complaint of sexual harassment at workplace, intent does not matter. Okay? So when a person says that, I want to file a complaint of sexual harassment, and they go to their committee, and an internal committee, by the way, in every organization which has more than 10 employees is formed. An IC it is called. And this particular IC committee takes account of all the sexual harassment complaints only. Now, the law requires that every particular organization which has more than 10 employees have internal committees in place, right? So when you're taking in a complaint, that is where the impact, intent becomes absolutely immaterial. It is the impact on the person at the receiving end who files the complaint with the internal committee. That is what is looked at, and that is what is given the first preference always. Okay. To give a very broad understanding of it, I often give this example. In fact, I give this example. I picked it on during my training with my organization at Posh at Work, and I always say it out loud also. So there was this particular complaint that our organization had got, wherein there were two men, right? So this particular organization had a gender neutral policy for sexual harassment. The law is for women only. I'll get to the why that is also. I'll explain that. Try to explain that. A lot of people are not always very convinced with it, but I'll try to explain that. But you can formulate, organizations can formulate neutral laws, right? Gender neutral laws for sexual harassment, they can do that. So this particular organization had a gender neutral law wherein even men could file a complaint against anybody for sexual harassment within their organization. Now, this man particularly, let's call him A, and the other man B. Now, they were in a bathroom, they were in a washroom, and A had gone to answer nature's call in the washroom, and B followed him to the toilet. And B was doing his business, and he was answering nature's call, and the other guy basically stood right behind him, right? And when this guy turned around, he suddenly got very scared, and he kind of got very offended, and he got very scared. And this particular man A, he went and filed a complaint of sexual harassment against the other guy in the organization, saying that this was very unwelcome, and I did not like that. Usually the answer or the understanding of this, a lot of people always say that why is that sexual harassment? I mean, it was just a joke. He was just standing behind him, and he was just trying to scare him. Like, those games we play where we hide behind walls and somebody comes in and we scare them. But, sorry, excuse me. But this particular complaint, firstly, it had to be taken because the impact, like I discussed before, the impact of this on somebody was there. So he was saying there is an impact on me, so this complaint has to be taken. And the complaint was taken up. Now, what was found out during the inquiry was that this particular man who had made this complaint against B was actually a victim of child sexual abuse, right? And this particular man his memories of all the child abuse, all the child sexual abuse that he was going through got triggered because of this one incident wherein he was in the bathroom, he was answering nature's call, and when he turned and he saw a man standing behind him, and he was caught in a very vulnerable position, so as to speak. All those memories kind of rushed to him, and it impacted him more than perhaps somebody else who was not in the same, does not come from the same experience of child abuse. So all of these things are so important to keep in mind, and that is why we can go back to the starting of what I was talking about so far as boundaries are concerned. Boundaries also change because of experiences, right? So that is why, to explain my point of intent versus impact, that is why it's very important to take complaints only on the basis of impact and then look at the intention, right? Also, I want to add that this particular man did not intend to sexually harass him. The inquiry was conducted against him in the workplace, and he was not given a punishment, so as to speak. He was not given a recommendation by the committee, so as to speak, which was very hefty. He was only told to conduct, be a part of a session of sexual harassment, and so as to sensitize him, or so as to make him aware of what sexual harassment is, and to make him aware of the boundaries around him. So all of these things have to be kept in mind. That is why I say the law is so subjective. When you actually go down to practicing the law, it is very interesting and it's very subjective and sometimes very complicated also. Okay, so I often ask this question: do you think giving someone more work at work, or telling somebody to do more work than they are supposed to do, say they're supposed to give in 10 hours a day, but they're giving them 12, they are telling them to do 12 hours, forcing them to do more work, will that fall under sexual harassment? Forcing someone to do more work because they have to do more work, they have to deliver, there is a certain deliverable time, and there's a deadline, or otherwise also. I actually want to, yes, no. Madhu Smita says no. No. Devansh says no. Right. Okay. Would anybody like to say why? Yes, depends if that person has rejected some offer. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, it is violation of labor law. Somebody says yes. Okay, no, unless extra time is being used to comply with any sexual act. Yeah, precisely. So, going back to the overtones, whether there is an overtone of sexual nature in the particular act, Karan and I think Raghav also said that yes, there needs to be some kind of if there is a background to it, right? If there is a quid pro quo, this for that, you have to do more work. You will have to do more work because you did not sleep with me. That is kind of a sexual harassment. But just saying that you have to do more work because there are less employees in the organization and you have to perform better, that could fall under harassment. Like somebody said, violation of labor laws. I'm not well read with labor laws, so I will not get into that. But yes, it can fall under harassment. It can fall under discrimination laws. Yeah. Okay. Also, I also want to point out, before we move on to the other aspects of the law per se, I also want to say sexism, sexual harassment, sexist remarks. These are all very different terms and people often use them conjointly. Telling somebody at work that, you're a woman or you should be back in the kitchen. Do you think that will fall under sexual harassment? You shouldn't be in the office, but you should actually be in the kitchen. Do you think that will fall under sexual harassment? No. Okay. No. What would it fall under? What would it be? What is it? What is telling someone, oh, you're a guy, you need to be in the gym. Why are you, reading so much? Why are you a bookworm? That is a sexist remark. Yeah. Or telling some guy, why are you cooking? Women do that. That is also sexism. Sexism can apply to both sexes, right? That's sexism. Precisely. So that is the difference between sexual harassment, sexism, bullying, body shaming, all of those things. Now these are so important to understand the law, right? Because if you're doing an inquiry, like I conduct inquiries for organizations, I'm an external member. So every organization is required to have an external member. So when I'm actually conducting an inquiry, and if I don't understand the differences between what is sexism, what is sexual harassment, I will just take up any complaint and do an inquiry and probably spoil the life of a person who the career of a person, even though that person did not even do any act of sexual harassment in the first place. So when you look at a complaint, the first thing that should strike you is you should be able to mark, okay, this falls under a type of sexual harassment. So that understanding is very important. Okay, that is why I'm going over this again and again. The nuances of it, very important. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the law, the legal aspect of it, not delve very deep, the basics of the law. Sexual Harassment Act of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. Now, this is the name of the act. It came out in 2013. Okay. Often, when I'm doing a session on sexual harassment, the first thing that strikes after the name of this law is the Constitution of India. Okay. I'll tell you why that is relevant for this particular law. Because a lot of people often ask, what is the basis of this act? Now, every law that is passed in our country, that is, that goes straight to the Constitution, emanates from the Constitution, right? Of course, nowadays there's a lot of discourse that there is no constitutional law which is being passed and all of that. I'm not going to get into that. But all laws that are passed have some basis, and that basis is the Constitution. Okay. Now, the Constitution has, to understand sexual harassment workplace laws, you must remember only two types of articles, two articles in the Constitution, which is Article 14 and Article 15 bracket 3. Okay. These two are very, very important to understand. Now, right to equality, right? Everybody in India is supposed to be equal according to the law. The society says otherwise, but according to the law, everybody is supposed to be equal regardless of caste, race, sex, gender. Now gender also. Now transgenders and homosexuals are also not substantively but legally, yes, there are laws now in place. So yes. So do you think we are equal in law per se, but not in the society? So the society is what makes people unequal, right? The law does not. And therefore comes in Article 15 bracket 3, which says that yes, there are inequalities, this article understands that there are inequalities in the law, right? And therefore there are certain types of sectors or certain types of sections of the society that need better laws, or that need special laws per se, right? And the women's sector is one such sector which has not been at par with the other sectors of the society, with the male sector of the society. Now, I'm saying this because from what I've read and from what I've understood, there has been centuries of patriarchy across the globe, not only in India, right? And that is why specific legislations for women are, made in the country. A lot of people argue otherwise, that now things have changed, but honestly speaking, even today, the percentage, this is not a very new statistic. I'm talking about, I must have looked at this statistic, say 2-3 months back. The last statistic I read of women being a part of the workforce across the subcontinent, now this includes the subcontinent, not only India, was only about 13%. Okay. And this says a lot. This says a lot about the fact that women are not at par currently in terms of various aspects of rights, of equality and other things. So the basis of this law comes from these two articles. Okay, it is not an unequal law. It is not illegal to give women extra rights. That is the particular aspect. I'm only talking legal. This is the particular angle of it which makes this particular law very appropriate in terms of the legalities of it. I'm not going to go over the specific timeline of it, but I'm going to take you through small instances which happened before 2013 that led to the formulation of this particular law. Okay, the first one is the KPS Gill case. Now, this happened back in 1986. Okay. Now, KPS Gill, a lot of people might be knowing him as somebody, who is he was an IPS officer. Everybody probably knows him of that. Now he was back in the 80s, a very powerful man, and so a sexual harassment complaint under the IPC was filed against KPS Gill. And during that time, that was the first sexual harassment complaint ever to be filed against a person under the IPC. At that time, 2013 Act was not there. So the lady against whom the sexual harassment was done had to go to the criminal side of it and file a complaint. And so this complaint got filed, and a lot of discourse happened. Now, this lady was also an IAS officer, right? And a lot of discourse happened during that time. A lot of backlash she faced because of this particular case that she filed against him, because he was a very powerful man, and people used to say that, why did you do that? Getting into the intricacies of it, this particular aspect, what he had done was he had butt slapped her. It's famously called the butt slap case, this KPS Gill case. So he had slapped her on the butt, and she got offended, and it was sexual harassment outright, and she filed a complaint. So people were telling her at that time that, oh my God, why are you so touchy about it? It's just a butt slap. Khai lete, things like that. So if you want, you can also go over YouTube and type in Rupan Deol Bajaj and look at her video. She's a lady who's talking about the backlash she faced in the 80s because of this. Then again, talking about the Vishaka guidelines. Vishaka guidelines are all out there. I don't want to get too much into them, but they were the predecessor of this particular law. And because there was no particular specific framework, or there was no mandate as such in the Vishaka guidelines, that is why these laws had to be formulated in 2013 in a better way. Slowly, steadily, something happened in 2012, which was the Nirbhaya gang rape case. Now, when this happened, even though the sexual harassment at workplace laws were being formulated, and there was a bill which got introduced in 2007, this particular incident triggered, it to move faster. It kind of accelerated the law to come into force in 2013. And then, of course, the Criminal Law Amendment Act, etc. happened. Now, I took you through all this to make you understand that why this law is right now women specific. It is not for any other gender, but only for women. To make you understand that, these are the hardships that the women did go through in the past, and all of these things happened. And that is why the lawmakers felt like women need a specific law when they're at work, especially now, since, in the 90s, they were stepping out more and, doing more work. Now, during my sessions, I often ask people how many of them have partners or spouses who are, working. A lot of people raise their hands because the crowd is generally young. But when I ask them whether their mother was a working woman, hands go down. The level of hands raising go down. And then when you ask them whether your grandmother was working, the hands are mostly nil. Like, I've never had anybody raise their hand except one session that I conducted. One particular man had raised his hand on all three, times. But so this happens. This kind of makes you understand. These exercises that I usually do make me understand and make everybody understand that yes, sexual harassment or at workplace laws were more important with changing times, because women started stepping out more in the last 20-30 years to work. They started going to work more often than they used to. Okay, right. So who can file a complaint? The law says that an aggrieved woman can file a complaint, right? An aggrieved woman. An aggrieved woman does not have to be an employee. Okay, an aggrieved woman can be anybody who enters a workplace. Now, a workplace is also a very wide term. Workplace is not my workstation. It's not my conference room. Just. It includes a lot of other aspects, which are, say, the parking lot of the workplace, the office offsite that is happening. So all of these things are included in workplace. Nowadays, especially now, since the COVID pandemic and everything, we are all talking and we are all doing work from home, and we are virtually operating. So now our workplace is also the internet. So these things are very important to remember when you are talking about workplaces. And any kind of harassment happening at any of these places will fall under Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act, right? Okay, so any aggrieved woman who enters this workplace can file a complaint. Does not necessarily have to be an employee. However, a person who is against whom the complaint is filed, right, जिसके अगेंस्ट कंप्लेंट होगा, दे आर कॉल्ड द रिस्पॉन्डेंट्स. तो यहाँ पे वो नहीं होता है एक्यूज्ड एंड गिल्टी एंड विक्टिम, यहाँ पे यूज होता है कंप्लेनेंट एंड रिस्पॉन्डेंट, बिकॉज इज अ सिविल लॉ. ओके, इज नॉट अ क्रिमिनल लॉ, दिस पर्टिकुलर एक्ट. And so if the complainant wants to file a complaint against a respondent, the respondent have to be the employee of that organization जहाँ पर complaint file होता है. Okay. And an employee is not straightforwardly somebody who's, operating on a salary basis or somebody who's coming to work regularly. An employee can also be like an independent contractor. They can be somebody who's, say, a consultant. They don't necessarily have to be somebody who's employed on a payroll. They can be, support staff. They can be interns. They can be trainees. All of those people will fall under the word employee under the Act. Okay. So, to give you an example, I'll let you answer that quickly. Do you think that a person, so this lady comes to deliver food in an office, okay? Do you think she can file a complaint against an employee of that office? If she feels like she's been sexually harassed? Let's get one answer. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Devansh. Yes, Raghav. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Priya, I believe. Yes, Aditya. Okay. Yeah. So yes, she can, because aggrieved woman does not necessarily have to be somebody who's an employee, right? Okay. Great. Moving on quickly now, because I don't have a lot of time. So workplace is covered. Internal committee. Now, every workplace, like I said in the starting of this session, I'll repeat that every workplace which has more than 10 employees needs to have an internal committee in place, which is in short called an IC. Okay. Now, this IC, this internal committee, needs to have at least 4 members. Okay. It has to have a senior woman employee who is going to be the presiding officer, right? And it has to be at least 50% female. Okay. And it has to have an external member. Now, I act as an external member for a lot of organizations. External members are important because they add to the perspective of, they bring in a different perspective. So this internal committee is also trained, right? People who are posh experts, who are posh consultants, they train these internal committees to take in complaints. Okay. Now, in the general scheme of things, where there are less than 10 employees, there is a local committee. Okay. So suppose I work in an office, suppose where जहाँ पर 10 से कम employees हैं, ठीक है. अब इस सिचुएशन में अगर कोई मेरे ऑफिस में काम करता है एंड दे हैव टू फाइल अ सेक्शुअल हैरेसमेंट कंप्लेंट, दे विल नॉट हैव एन आईसी कमिटी बिकॉज 10 से कम एम्प्लॉयज हैं. दे कैन गो टू द लोकल कमिटी. हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, एवरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट हैज़ अ लोकल कमिटी. ओके. Now, this local committee is formulated by the approval by the mandate of the district magistrate in a particular district. Now, this is also specifically laid down. Every state government does it. कि इतना डिस्ट्रिक्ट है एंड इस डिस्ट्रिक्ट में ये अपॉइंट होंगे, ये डिस्ट्रिक्ट में ये अपॉइंट होंगे. सो इट्स अ वेरी फॉर्मुलेटेड प्रोसेस. एंड नाउ डेज शी बॉक्स हैज ऑल्सो स्टार्टेड फॉर योर जनरल अवेयरनेस, वेयर शी बॉक्स, SHE box, which says that anybody can basically go and file a complaint online against their employee or anything. Also, this local committee takes up complaints against the employer of the workplace. ठीक है. तो इंटरनल कमिटी एम्प्लॉयर की कंप्लेंट नहीं लेगी, मतलब बॉस, बिग बॉस की कंप्लेंट नहीं लेगी. द बॉस हु इज the owner of the proprietor or the CEO, the managing partner of that particular organization, उनके अगेंस्ट कंप्लेंट IC नहीं लेगी, लोकल कमिटी LC लेगी. Okay. Also now the act, they have this particular procedure for addressal. Inquiry होता है and the other is conciliation. Okay. Conciliation is basically settling a matter. But this settlement is not to be done with money. The law specifically prohibits that. Okay. And the law also says that the conciliation will be done only and only at the behest, at the accord of the complainant. Okay. Now, inquiry, this entire process is a timeline, right? There's a step-by-step timeline that is supposed to be followed. It takes 90 days. It has from the day you receive the complaint to the day the inquiry report is submitted. This entire process has to be a 90-day procedure. Okay. and this complaint has to come in writing. So a person who wants to file a complaint in an organization, they have to give the particular complaint in writing. Okay, if they don't give it in writing, there are other aspects to that, like they can go back on their word, or they might forget about what they need to write or what they need to say during the inquiry. अभी जब inquiry होता है, it is conducted in a very step by step process. Evidence लिया जाता है on record by the IC members जो ये inquiry कर रहे होते हैं. Evidence किस तरह का ले सकते हैं? You can take evidence in the form of videos. You can take them in the form of WhatsApp messages. You can take them in the form of, say, emails, and a lot of other aspects are highlighted there. So all of these things, CCTV footage, all of these things fall under the inquiry procedures, and they can be taken on record. Now, looking at it from the perspective of the idea कि written complaint क्यों होना चाहिए? Written complaint इसलिए होना चाहिए कि firstly ये जो complaint होता है, it has to go to the respondent also. जिनके अगेंस्ट कंप्लेंट होता है उनको भी एक कॉपी दिया जाता है, लाइक इन अ जनरल स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स, इन क्रिमिनल लॉ एंड ऑल लॉज द अदर साइड इज ऑल्सो गिवन अ कॉपी. सो इसमें भी कॉपी दिया जाता है अंडर द गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ नेचुरल जस्टिस, where both sides are given equal importance. So they are given the copy, they are allowed to respond to that particular complaint. Step by step procedure happens, examination is conducted, witnesses are called in, all of those things happen in the workplace. Now this is a very, very nuanced procedure. It's not just a joke now. It's a very new law, and that is why lots of case laws keep coming up. If you go through the Supreme Court website, I think in the last 2 weeks there were 2 judgments which came out under sexual harassment. The last and last month only this very important judgment came out which said that it is a fundamental right. It is a violation of a fundamental right. It's an affront to having sexual harassment, having to do sexual harassment with somebody. It's an affront to fundamental rights. So the court is reiterating constantly on these laws, and it's great that it's happening. Okay, the other aspect is recommendations. अब recommendations यहाँ पे punishment नहीं बोलते हैं. Yes, cross examination, Skype call, yes, all of those things are included. Yes, definitely. Okay, recommendations, अब punishment नहीं बोलते हैं under this particular act. Okay, what you say is recommendation. IC committee has passed a recommendation of lots of types are there. If you open the act, it will particularly point to recommendations like say take action as misconduct, to write a written apology, warning, reprimand, withholding of promotion, withholding of pay rise, terminating, undergoing counseling session, carrying out community service. Community service आजकल बहुत ज़्यादा यूज चला जा रहा है. If you know that there is this particular aspect of it, this particular judge, I think Justice Najmi Waziri had passed order saying that you plant trees. So that is the kind of community service I'm talking about. So that is usually that is being followed now in courts, and I'm glad it's happening. It used to happen a lot back in the US, and now it's happening here. So yes, so all of these things are very important. Malicious complaint is also something that I want to talk to you about. If you file a false complaint, right? If anybody files a false complaint, all of these things, all of these recommendations of termination, of withholding promotion, withholding pay rise, cutting salaries can apply to the complainant also. Okay, so it's not a joke that anybody can get up and file a complaint and they will be terminated. That doesn't happen. It has serious repercussions, and that is why I always say when I'm doing an awareness session, you should never play around with somebody's career. I think that's just the worst thing to do. Of course, एक और चीज़ है जो प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए लॉ में दिया गया है, and that is confidentiality. Okay, confidentiality is supremely important in this law. There is a particular section which says that, and it says that all of those things, all of those conversations that happen within the IC committee, all the documents that are taken on record, they have to be kept confidential. Okay, they can't be disclosed. There's a certain fine also imposed under the law, which is 5,000 rupees right now, which is I think very less. I think it should be amended. But आज की date में penalty is 5,000 rupees for disclosure of any confidential information, of any confidential documents. So I think this is the law broadly, so as to speak. And one last thing that I want to point out is, the understanding that this was the civil side of the law. the criminal side of the law is also there. And when a person files a complaint of sexual harassment in an organization against a person, they also have the right to file an FIR against this person. Okay, they have that right. And these complaints, both with the FIR and with the IC, can go and work side by side. There's a lot of confusion in this regard, but no, अगर FIR फाइल हुआ है इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि IC वाला जो कंप्लेंट है, जो वर्क प्लेस वाला कंप्लेंट है, वो रद्द हो जाएगा या वो infructuous हो जाएगा. That does not happen. They can run side by side. Okay, so that is I think all. I think I'm okay to take questions now. Okay, so the question is, if any LGBT community person who believes that he is a woman or his traits are very similar to women, and if someone harassed him at his workplace, will it fall under POSH? Okay, so Devansh, right now this particular act specifically says that this applies only to women. Okay, so it talks about sex in particular of a person. Okay, the biological sex is the particular aspect of it, and if it turns out that the person is biologically not female, then the law will not apply to them. However, a lot of organizations nowadays, in my experience, are having these laws where they are taking in people and including people. Inclusive policies are being made where transgenders, people who don't succumb to a particular sexuality, just because they're a man, they want to be a woman. All of these things are being taken into account by organizations. Tata was one of the first organizations to do that in their workplace, and these things are being implemented. I don't know if you people follow Josh Talks also. Josh Talks is one organization, we formulated their policy, and they also have an all-inclusive workplace policy where they include everybody and anybody. So it's great, right? And that is okay. Sorry. Yeah, this discourse is definitely happening. Okay. So I did have another few questions that I will go over. If the harasser is not employed by that workplace but harasses a woman at her workplace, can he still be punished? Okay, so yes, punishment can be done if the person can file an FIR against this person. So, for example, if A is being harassed by a person who's not an employee of this organization, okay, but they are in the same workplace, right? That's what you asked. What happens now is that the IC of that particular organization cannot take it up. And why is that? Because जो रेपरकशंस हैं, जो इंक्वायरी का कंक्लूजन होगा, वो कैसे अप्लाई करेंगे उसमें उस इंसान पर? नहीं कर सकते ना. तो जिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के वो एम्प्लॉय हैं, राइट, वो ही पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इस कंप्लेंट, उसके अगेंस्ट कंप्लेंट ले सकती है. सो दिस लेडी हु फील्स हैरेस्ड एट हर वर्क प्लेस बाय अनदर एम्प्लॉय हु इज फ्रॉम अनदर वर्क प्लेस can go and file a complaint in the IC of that person's workplace. And they can seek help from their own ICs also. So a lot of organizations have this assistance policies and everything. They have this. Okay. So ma'am, does it mean that the organization has the discretion of including men or LGBTQ? Yes, they do. The organizations are being very inclusive now. And in fact, this whole discourse of gender neutrality in terms of sexual harassment and workplace laws has started. Last year in July, the UN finally came out with a convention saying that even men can be harassed, other genders can be harassed. So finally, the discourse is happening. It will take time to put it in the law, in the framework also. But policy-wise, yes, HR policies, sexual harassment, workplace policies, all of these can be inclusive. The law does not say that you can't make them. The law says make them, but make sure that you add the basic law, which is for women. Basic foundation is for women has to be there. Other genders can be included. There is nothing which says that you can't do it. Okay, one more. Does the suspect misbehave with external member? Okay, I don't understand this. Ma'am, in your experience, do you receive any malicious complaints? If yes, please do share. I don't remember having a malicious complaint come to me. It hasn't come in till date, to be fairly honest. And let me tell you, the statistic is a single digit number. It's just 5% of malicious complaints ever recorded since 2013, if I'm not wrong. The latest statistic could be otherwise. The external member can be either a male. Yes, they can be either a male or female. However, the entire committee, which has to be minimum 4 members, has to be 50% female. Okay, external member can be a male or a female, no doubt about it. Okay. What is right or law in relation to a male if he faces sexual harassment at workplace? Now, this completely depends on the policy of the organization. Like I said, if they have a policy which is inclusive of males, they can approach the IC. Also, they can approach the police. There are certain